featuring my boy X-Ray from the East Coast Road Group. Chicago, make some noise! What's going on, everybody? How are ya? And without any further ado, Mr. J.C. Shashelsky! You didn't expect me to pronounce it right, did you?
Yeah, Mike and J.C. from the East Coast Road Group. The panels here for is that we have Mr. Bill Moseley. And of course, Mr. Sid Haig.
Hey everybody. Bear down, bear! Shit, this is gonna screw up the Ravens running game, I hope. Alright.
So let's first start off with House of Thoughts and Corpses, Devils Rejects. We'll talk about the difference of Spalding and Otis from film to film.
I was just thanking our DJ for that Ministry song, Jesus Built My Hot Rod. He turned me on to it, actually, so I'm forever in debt to him.
Leaving it up to me, good.
What was the question?
The fond memories that I have from House of a Thousand Corpses is shooting all night in the desert in a satin clown suit, which makes your nipples really hard.
I can't remember that far back. I'm getting a little old, and the memories starting to get shot. But I remember actually my fondest memory was getting the fucking job. I had met Rob at a horror award show at Universal Studios in Burbank, California, in October, Halloween of '99, and I came dressed as Chop Top to MC this little horror award show, which has now grown into something called the Igor Awards. It's a very big deal now. But back then it was outdoors, it was kind of cheesy, and well, it's still cheesy, but now it's indoors. Anyway, I came dressed as Chop Top. I had a guy do the makeup, and I came in like a ratty tuxedo. And I was introducing the award recipients, and Rob Zombie was one of those recipients. And it freaked him out when he came out and got his little award that, his Chop Top was emceeing the show. He said later, backstage he was listening to me and he said, guy's doing a decent Chop Top. And then he came out and went, oh my God, it's Chop Top. So, I met him and his manager, Andy Gould, and about a month after our meeting that fateful night, I got a call from Andy saying that Rob just got his movie greenlit, which green for the color of money, and they said, you can do it, we'll pay for it. And would you like to be in it? And I thought, yeah. Didn't take long. I was having trouble getting a job as an extra at that point, so I was very happy to get any kind of job. And then it turns out Otis Driftwood was, kind of a big character. So, I was excited about that, and excited to work with people like Sid Haig, Karen Black, the late Karen Black, the late Dennis Fimple, the late Matt McGrory. We're losing a lot of our cast members, but we had a ball, and that's a long answer to a short question.
So tell us about the differences between Spalding and Otis from the first film to the second.
You're Spalding.
Well, the thing is, we didn't interact at all in House of a Thousand Corpses. Our first interaction that you see is the Devil's Rejects, and that's good guy, bad guy, assholes, and elbows. Okay? Always kind of at one another, and Rob wrote a biography for all the characters, which was up on the website, and it seems as though he and I met up in jail, and then when we got out, we got together and tried our hands at bank robbery, which was the Three Stooges routine, and screwed that up, and then we went into hiding at the ranch, and we picked up there. So it was establishing a relationship between the two guys, and I'm sure you guys got it. We were always kind of at one another. I'm gonna get me some tutti fucking frutti. The way that came about, that line was not in the script. Rob brought us into the office, and he had problems with that scene. Why it just wasn't working for him right. So we started playing around with it, and he said, what are you gonna do? And I said, I don't know, let's just do it. Whatever comes out. If it works, it works. If not, we'll just try something else. So we go through the thing, and all of a sudden, just into my demented brain came, well, I'm gonna have me some tutti fucking frutti. And there you go. That's how shit is born in Hollywood.
How about you, Phil?
Well, Otis in the House of a Thousand Corpses, actually, Sid, we did work together in House of a Thousand Corpses. In the last scene, when I'm in the backseat of the car, hiding in the car. And anyway, my first impression of Sid Haig was when I walked into the costume room over at Universal Studios before we started shooting House of a Thousand Corpses. And there was Sid standing in his fucking clown costume. And it was like, whoa, this is Sid Haig. I was like, yo, all right. So very exciting. And then we had a table read, and that was exciting. So, we kind of, we knew each other, but it wasn't until certainly Devil's Rejects where we really got up close and personal. The difference between Otis and the House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects was certainly in House of a Thousand Corpses, Otis was an albino and had kind of red flecked eyes and seemed a little kind of beyond the pale in terms of my art and Fish Boy and freaking out the cheerleaders and all that kind of stuff. And then then I think Devil's Rejects starts about 2 weeks after House of a Thousand Corpses ends, in a timeline. And yet now Otis is like not an albino, grown a big beard. My hair is a little blonder, and my eyes are blue. And that's when I really thought that I thought Rob was really smart and good when he did House of a Thousand Corpses, but then I thought he really went into genius territory for me when he basically took the opportunity to do a horror sequel. And we all know that we've suffered a lot of horror sequels that are basically the first one kind of reworked just to squeeze some more money out of a long-suffering horror fan. And that Rob was a genius because not only did we all look different, Captain Spalding's out of makeup most of the time, and Baby doesn't do her laugh most of the time, and Otis is totally different. And I was just going to say that, that's when I thought Rob was a genius to take the opportunity to do a sequel and go from really a horror film of House of a Thousand Corpses to a violent crime film. And I don't really think of Devil's Rejects as a horror movie in the classic sense. And that's when we obviously spent a lot of time together. Sydney and Sherry, we got along great. It really helped that we had kind of broken the ice with House of a Thousand Corpses. So I for one had never done a sequel before. So it was very cool to kind of revisit that character. And to show up on set having already gotten the character under your belt, and then really just taking off and just having a lot of fun with it.
And the reason the whole thing just ended with the Devil's Rejects is because none of us really wanted to think about doing the Devil's Rejects in 90. Okay?
I was thinking of it. I got expensive children. I wanted to do Devil's Rejects 35.
You got more tools in your chest than that, okay?
Well, you guys, talked about Rob being kind of liberal with dialogue on corpses. How much did that change whenever it came to Devil's Rejects? Was he more open to letting you guys improv, or was it more like stick to the script?
I wanted to stick to the script in Devil's Rejects. I thought it was a big improvement. And I was a bad boy in House of a Thousand Corpses because I just started off crazy. One of the first scenes that I shot was when the guys come in to rob the store, okay, and the guy says, stick him up, and I went like that.
Hey, a ladybug just landed on it. Huh? A ladybug just landed on it. That's good luck. That's good fucking luck.
Yeah, well, you better be good luck. I didn't even touch it. Yeah, so and I did that, which wasn't in the script, and Rob cracked up. He fucked up the tape, okay? He said, hey, try to hold it together, man, we got a movie to do here. But that became my objective in House of Focus. If I could get Rob to just lose it, then, that was fine. When it came to the menu, for instance, I got the script for the menu. You know what I'm talking about, the menu at the front of
PVP menu.
Yeah. I got the script at like midnight before the morning shoot, okay? So I came in and I said, Rob, come on. This is like 5 pages of dialogue. I can't memorize all this shit. And he goes, well, you know the high points, right? I said, yeah. He said, okay, then here. And he handed me a jelly donut and a porno mag, and he said, go. Okay.
Wow. And I think I might have eaten that donut too.
Yeah. It's one of them juicy motherfuckers.
Juicy. I thought it was an eclair. Actually, in House of a Thousand Corpses, my experience was that Rob was a lot tighter with the script and wanted you to, was not really up for a lot of improv. And I think that was really because, my theory was that it was because it was a first-time movie for him, first-time director. He was under a lot of pressure from the good folks at Universal. He was under a lot of pressure, I think. And so a lot of times, that was my experience, was that we pretty much stuck to the script in House of a Thousand Corpses. But by the time we did Devil's Rejects, he was a lot looser. Of course, he knew us all from working together. So there was a lot more leeway, I found. For instance, there was a scene where I drive Banjo and Sullivan to what I call the Killing Fields, and it was an old, it was literally an abandoned chicken farm in Lancaster, California. And I guess the person had just run out of money and just left the fucking chickens. And the chickens had all turned to dust. So there was like a lot of chicken dust around there. And anyway, so I pull up in the van and I'm marching Banjo and Sullivan to where I'm going to take them out. And there was a kind of a traveling scene of us walking a long way. And Rob said, we need some dialogue there. So why don't you say, why don't you, pull out your pistol and say, I think that's your wife's pussy stink on my gun. And I went, what? He said, yeah, so, go ahead and say that. And I went, okay. So I said, hey, man, I think I was talking to Lou Temple. He said, it's your wife's pussy stink on my gun. And then I improvised, hope it don't rust the barrel. And, that was kind of the stuff. And we were all cracking up at that. So there was more leeway, I guess. And, it ended up, for me, in a way, Devil's Rejects was maybe my favorite movie shoot. Just because we only had 30 days, so there was a ticking clock. It was tight. We all showed up and kicked some ass. And 30 days later, we were done. 45 days later, I got permission to shave my beard. And I ended up going to a barber shop that had like this strop and this straight razor. And what I did was I saved a lot of the beard. I shaved it off and put it in a baggie. And when Hurricane Katrina, which this weather reminds me of, came, I thought in order to do my part to help the animals and the people and whoever else needed help down there, that I would sell some pictures on eBay of a picture of my face, and then I would take a little bit of the beard that I had saved from the shave, and I would glue the little particles of beard onto the pictures. Sell them for $50, send it to Louisiana. And, I did that, and I sold one, and, I sent it off, and then the person emailed me back and said, thanks for the DNA. And I went, oh, fuck. And that was the last one. It was one and done on that.
You gotta be careful with that shit. There's a guy that makes latex masks that fit perfectly to your face. I mean, all the way up to your eyelids. It looks exactly like the person is supposed to. And he wanted to make a mask of me. okay? And I said, no, you may not make a mask of me. He goes, you can make so much money. I said, no, I will wind up in jail because some fucker is going to buy that mask, go into a bank, rob the fucking bank. Sid Haig robbed the bank. No.
That's tricky shit.
So each film was very intense in its own different way. What challenges did you guys face shooting some of the scenes? Were there any scenes in particular that you sort of had problems with shooting?
Gingerbread scene is not a problem. Where's the problem with that?
You have to strap it down, maybe?
What?
Maybe you have to strap it down. That might be a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Wasn't there something about
Oh, the tiny whiteys? The not so whitey tiny whiteys? Rob wanted to have skid marks on the underwear, okay? And the wardrobe guy came up with this little rag thing, okay, on my butt. And Rob goes, no, it needs to be more. And so the guy, and he said, no, more, we need more. I said, give me that bucket back. How's that? He goes, yeah, good. Perfect. Let's go. Crazy. Oh, something. I told Rob that I was going to do that scene with my underwear because if I went skin to skin with Ginger Lynn, this would be a whole new kind of movie. Okay? And he said, yeah, okay, I think that's a good idea. So we did it that way. And a friend of ours, Uncle Creepy, that runs Red Central, does the review on the film, and he says, women all over the country are going to be hitting the pause button because Sid Haig exposes his testicles. And my wife said, I thought you said you had underwear. I said, I did. She said, no, click. It was a hot day, they jumped out to say hello. And if anybody doesn't know where Lancaster is, if they had to give the world an enema, that's where they'd stick it. And we were there for 30 days.
How about you, Bill? With maybe some of the kill scenes, some of the torture scenes, anything really get to you?
Oh no, the kill and torture scenes were a lot of fun. Hey, it's my line of work. It's who I am. It's what I do. No, actually, but I think one of the unsung heroes of Devil's Rejects, I don't know if he's that unsung, but was our stunt coordinator, Kane Hodder. Look at Kane, there was, pretty much all of those stunts were, what we call practical or, real stunt. There was no CGI and all that shit. When I'm killing Banjo and Sullivan, there's one scene where I take what looks like a shillelagh, like a big piece of wood, and I maul poor Jeffrey Lewis between the legs and just whack his nuts. And they had a rig. It was amazing. They had a rig. They asked, they said I could try it. I said, no thanks, I don't want to try your rig. But anyway, they had some kind of a rig so that the stunt guy strapped on so that you could actually hit somebody between the legs as hard as you could and it wouldn't hurt. And so some of those scenes are like pretty amazing. Anyway, that's tip of the hat to Kane. In terms of difficult scenes, I did have a scene with Mary Warnoff. Yes, Mary Warnoff was at the very beginning of Devil's Rejects. There's a waitress, and Mary Warnoff's been in a lot of movies. You probably recognize her from, Reform School Girl. She was, what's that? Rock and Roll High School. She was the principal. And anyway, so she drives up, and we're pretending, Baby and I are pretending that I'm hurt. And she gets out of the car, and Baby is hurt, I guess, and she leans down to Baby, and then I come up and stab her in the back. Well, she was wearing some kind of a plastic plate in her back so that I, could stab her and she wouldn't be hurt. And it was a retractable knife, so it wasn't like I was stabbing her. But for some reason, what I heard was avoid the plate. I didn't hear stab the plate. I heard avoid the plate. So I don't know why. So I jumped on Mary and I stabbed her and I avoided the plate. In following directions. And Mary was like, ah! which was good. I mean, good for you guys. It's a very authentic take.
But sucked for her.
It sucked for her. And then she's like over later, and they've got her shirt up. She's got like a big welt in her back, and they're putting ice bags on it. I felt so bad. I always buy her a cheeseburger whenever I see her. Just I feel it's one of those.
Yeah, but DDT made you pay back.
Yeah, that's right. DDT, Diamond Dallas Page. Yes, he throws. It looks like me, but it really wasn't me when he throws me out the window at Ken Forey's chicken ranch. But then Diamond Dallas Page comes out and he kicks. I'm on my hands and knees, and Diamond Dallas Page kicks me in the ribs, and. I didn't have a pad on for that, and I figured that because he's the world wrestling champion, he knows how to, fake stuff like that. But he really kicked me in the fucking rib. It was like, ah! And then we had to do it again, of course. There's always take two. And then, I don't know if it was Kane or one of the stunt people came up and said, "Would you like a pad?" I went, "Yeah." So, but they gave me a pad that was almost like basically like a piece of plywood. And so then I had this piece of plywood, which wasn't, padded at all. And then Diamond Dallas Page kicked me again. This time he thought, well, he's got a pad, so I can really, and that hurt even more. So I think it took about 6 months to finally, it was like bruised ribs. Yeah, it's a lot of times on the movie sets, we look at each other and go, where's the glamour? The movie set is actually, I think, maybe with OSHA or something, one of the most dangerous places because, strange things happen, especially when they yell action, people get a little excited, and, different, people can, you just hurt your legs on, a wall, you can trip.
I forget what the actor's name is right now, but there was a guy, they were working like 18-hour days, okay, and he was just burnt out. He had his pistol sitting in his lap. He was in his chair, and they said, "Okay, Mr. whatever his name was, we're ready for you." And he goes, "Oh," and he pulls the trigger. There was a blank in there. He killed him. So that's the kind of shit that can happen on a movie
Yeah, so
set.
come on out to Hollywood. Just make sure you got a good insurance policy.
Wow. Now, let me ask, do either of you remember shooting anything that didn't end up in the final cut?
Of rejects?
Of rejects, corpses, I
I did, yes, the rebellion scene. Irwin Keyes used to love to talk about the great, the ending of House with Thousand Corpses that never was.
Yeah. We did shoot that. I was driving an ice cream truck, and the girl, Jen, yeah. I had, tied up and everything, and then at one point, the belly comes out from the back, grabs her, and then that's the end of the scene. Okay, we just cut away from that. And he just wouldn't let that go. And he said, Rob told him that they couldn't use that scene in the picture because it was too orange. Yeah. So we were all doing a panel in Fort Lauderdale, and Irwin was one of the panelists, and somebody asked how come he wasn't in The Devil's Rejects, and I didn't give him a chance to answer. Because he's too orange.
But there were rumors when Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, it took 3 years between the time we finished in 2000 and 2003 when it finally came out. There were lots and lots of rumors about it just too frightening for human eyes and all this kind of shit. And then there are all these scenes that were cut out and are stored in vats underneath in the catacombs of Brussels, and it was very exciting. But in fact, I thought about it. I thought, well, if there were really horribly fucked up scenes, I probably would have been in them, or Sid would have been in them. So we can't recall any. So that might just be a rumor.
Yeah. The MPAA, when they rate a film, and particularly for a newbie like Rob was, they just rake you over the coals. Okay, you have to run the gauntlet with these bastards. And Rob had to take House of a Thousand Corpses back to the MPAA 10 times to get a rating, okay? These are seriously fucked up. Now, we flip around to the Devil's Rejects, and we broke the record for F-bombs in a film. 560 fucks in a 93-minute film, okay?
Which was great for those of us who had trouble remembering their lines.
Well, whenever you can remember your lines, it's fuck. Yeah, okay.
Shit fuck, shit fuck, shit fuck. That was one of my favorite lines.
So the rumors are Rob Zombie's taking a hiatus from the horror genre. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, he might revisit that statement that he made, and I hope he does, because you know, we want him to keep going. He took a couple of hits on the Lords of Salem, and you know, he's now just kind of getting over that. So I hope he does come up with another horror film. He's got a script that he's working on right now, a hockey script about the Broad Street Bullies, Philadelphia Flyers. Okay? So and he's a big hockey fan. We all went to the hockey games together, so you know, when he gets that put together and hopefully shot, maybe he'll jump back into horror.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the choice of the Philadelphia Flyers, of course, I'm a Blackhawks fan. We're very good. You know, the idea that he's doing the Philadelphia Flyers is not so appealing.
So just sort of a question to go along
He
with.
did the Bobby Hull story, Kenny Warham, Eric Mystery.
Sort of go along with that. You know, hundreds of horror movies come out all the time. What do you think made House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects stand above the rest? Was it... That doesn't sound good. What makes it stand out above the rest?
Sid works for the NSA. He's taping all.
Do you think it had a lot to do with Rob? Do you think it had to do with your performances, being who you guys are? What are your thoughts on really the Firefly clan becoming the newest horror icons of the last 10 years, 10, 15 years?
I just think it's a return to the really great horror films of the 70s, mid-70s. He was smart enough to grab a hold of that concept and develop that. I don't think there was anything special about anybody. The special was Rob Zombie was now directing the film. Everybody wanted to see that, and everybody wanted to see Karen Black in a horror film again. Okay? So there were those little elements that made it work, but it was that return to that style in the mid-70s that really worked.
And I also think that really what Rob was very good at was casting both movies. I think the idea that that he gets Sid Haig in the movie is genius. Sid, we call him the Ronald McDonald of the franchise. Sid Haig, Karen Black, got Rainn Wilson, from The Office. You get Chris Hardwick. You've got Dennis Dimple, all these different the actors in this. Who played who was the deputy, sheriff's deputy?
Dave Shelton.
Walter Goggins. Thank you.
Yeah,
Walton
Walter
Goggins.
And
Great. Mr.
Mr.
Willis, who was was in like that would work.
Tom Tolles.
Tommy Tolles. Now there's it's funny about Tommy Tolles. Rob asked me, he said, do you have any actors, any actors that you would think would be good for the movie? And I said, yeah, Tom Tolles, my buddy Tommy Tolles. And Rob asked his casting people if they could find Tommy. This was in Los Angeles. And they came back to him and said, no, we couldn't find him anywhere. And I looked him up in the fucking phone book. He's right there. I called him up. He answers the phone. I go, hey, man, is this a working number for you? Yeah, it always has been. I'm in the book, So I passed that information along to Rob. He called him up and, got him in the movie. And Tommy Tolles is amazing.
Yeah.
I think one of the most amazing visuals of House of a Thousand Corpses is when Sid and Tommy are kind of face to face, arguing in the gas station. It's one of the funniest, because these guys have big heads. It's on the big screen, they're face to face. That was an awesome moment.
Well, both of you have rather impressive careers. You've spanned a couple of years acting. Other than, we've touched on Otis and Captain Spalding a little bit today. Besides those two, what are some of your favorite roles that you played?
I did a film with Omar Sharif called Che, and it was the story about Che Guevara. And he was so cool to work with. I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning and go to work. Okay? And the director was Richard Fleischer, who just the year before that won the Academy Award for Dr. Dolittle, Rex Harrison version of that. Anyway. And a really great cast of people, and they were sticking really true to the story of Che Guevara, because they had two guys that fought with Castro and Che all the way into Havana as experts on the film. And so anytime we ran into something that would be basically not something that Che would do, they would say, no, sorry, he wouldn't do that, he would do this. So it was that idea of just keeping the story real was very cool. I've just done a lot of stuff that I feel really good about. The Big Top, which I went 180 degrees from Captain Spalding. And it was a pleasure to do that, because in 92, I just backed away. Nobody quits. That's like a motto. But I said, I'm just going to give these guys some time to wise up and figure out that I can do more than just point a gun in somebody's face. Okay? And that was kind of important for me to do that. Rob came, well, first of all, I got a call from Quentin. Oh, you got my whole phone number? Absolutely. But when the Quentin Tarantino was like, it was CIA or something. He said, hey, okay. And he called and he said, I get it, you don't want to do any more stupidities. I've written a part for you with Jackie Brown, and we'll do it. I won't take no feedback, so that's the end. Okay, boss. I'm there. And so I did Jackie Brown, and they had to be there, and I got the call from my agent to go to this building on Wilshire Boulevard, sign a letter of non-disclosure, take the script home, read it, and if you like the part, it's yours. That was ridiculous. House of a Thousand Corpses.
For me, yeah, I mean, and for me, I've had a lot of fun. I mean, I certainly had fun playing Otis and Chop Top. I've had fun playing, really had a lot of fun playing Luigi Largo and Repo at Opera. I enjoyed my week on the set of Tom Savini's remake of Night of the Living Dead, playing Johnny. I practiced long and hard to get that Boris Karloff accent down.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Yeah, speaking of improv, I got a chance to improv because it was a long walk from our car to our mother's gravestone, so I added, they're horny, Barbara. They've been dead a long time. And they liked that, so they kept it in. Recently I've done a bunch of things. I've done a couple things with Kane Hodder. He's a blast to work with. He's an actor, great actor. And we did something on Long Island last December called Old 37, where we play brothers and we drive around fucked up old ambulance, and we listen to the police scanner, and we show up at accident sites before the real ambulance. And again, I can't really tell you what we do there, but there is a wood chipper at the back of the ambulance. We were calling it Obamacare for a while. That's not really a good joke, but we.
Obama doesn't care.
Well, that was when they were, talking about the death committees and everything. So anyway, but yeah. So it's fun for me. I keep doing stuff. I keep getting, I keep getting. It's so funny because people say, aren't you kind of feel restricted in the horror genre? And the horror genre. First of all, I'm a horror fan, so that's no problem. It's like a dream come true. And also, the horror genre, really offers so many amazing parts and so many different kinds of roles that I'm happy to stay in the horror genre until I turn 106.
Yeah.
Which isn't so far away.
So give it a year. Okay. Well, talking about Luigi, you're also in Devil's Carnival. What's the status on Chapter 2? Have you heard anything from Darren?
Darren texted me happy birthday. My birthday was November 11th, so I got a text from him. I think it was about a week late, and saying happy birthday. I think Darren and Terrence are on the road right now promoting Repo Genetic Opera's 5th anniversary. And I think part of that is to promote Devil's Rejects and also to try to raise some funds to do Devil's Carnival Part 2, Devil's Carnival, not Devil's Rejects. I work in a lot of devil movies. I get them confused. So I don't really know. Usually with Darren, it's basically he calls up and just says, show up tomorrow in such and such a place. And, that's okay. I'm hoping. He said I'd have a bigger part, so yeah, I'm really hoping.
So we did a thing that we really didn't ever do a scene together, but was a fun thing. Anybody ever watch Honesty?
Honestly.
So that's something we brought up there. And the episode that I did, which was the final episode of the season, he was doing the red carpet thing. He never had a word of dialogue or anything. He was just there in the carpet in the background. So we got a chance to talk. Yeah.
Awesome. Crazy Max.
Yeah.
You don't buy it from me, you're retarded. I was always worried about my Boston accent until I just kind of came to it.
So Sid, I have to ask about your work with Pam Grier.
I said, no.
There was a time, you guys were in a lot of movies together. Just tell us about some of your favorite roles with her and just working with her.
I did her very first film, which was The Big Dollhouse. I've never seen it before. It was her first job ever. And Jack, who's the director, was hey, Mike, let's do this. So the first day she was walking, she was okay. Tell you the way Hollywood works. We just met one, right? Very close. It was beautiful. It was giving one another an energy between the bars and stuff. I can see what happened.
Saw a tree.
Yeah, it is on. I did 6 pictures with Pam, and it was a blast all the way down the line. We always had one another's back because we did a lot of work in the Philippines, and so there was a lot to look out for. The girls from Hollywood, from Beverly Hills, would show up in the jungle and say, "I have to go potty." I said, "Well, pick a bush," because we didn't get a portable toilet until the 4th film. Okay. But she wasn't like that. She said, "Yeah, I'll kill a fucking bush. And, just take somebody with you to watch out for snakes and spiders, and you'll be fine." And we hadn't seen one another for 27 years. And when she walked on the set of Jackie Brown and saw me in the black dress, in the judge's robes, she cracked up laughing. She fell on the ground. And it was like after 27 years of not talking to one another, it was like we had lunch the day before. We just picked everything right back up. Because when you're in those stressful situations together, you just bond and you become really friends and close.
you have a picture of the two of you like in some kind of a mud puddle or something?
Oh,
in a
yeah.
amorous embrace?
Yeah, I was gone for 2 days. I was 2 days, MIA. So she comes at me with a Chris, those wavy knives. And the only thing I had to defend myself with was a duck. And we got ready to shoot the scene. And the duck was there, and the woman was supposed to be plucking the feathers, okay? And I said, roll them, okay, sound. And I looked over, and the duck was still alive, okay? I said, the duck. And somebody reached in and went, okay? And now this duck is doing a tap dance in his bowl. And she comes at me with the knife, and I grab the duck, and I swing, and duck shit right across the face. So, if you're not friends, you can't do that, okay? And then we wind up in the mud together, and then we wind up in the hut together, and the hut is shaking, and chickens are flying out the window, and yeah, it's good.
Well, you had her first on-screen kiss too, didn't you?
Huh?
Pam Grier. Weren't you her first on-screen kiss?
Yes. Yeah. First on-screen hand job, too.
Memories.
So, one film I have to ask about. Tell us about your time working on Spider Baby.
That was the most amazing experience because when I was a kid, every Saturday I'd go to the movies, okay, and I would see either Lon Chaney Jr. or Bela Lugosi or Boris Karloff. And, I started when I was young into the horror stuff. And to work with one of the three masters of horror was just the most amazing thing to me that, for the first 2 days I couldn't even talk. It was a good thing that my character was mute, so. But he was such a great guy. And there's a lot of dead time on a film, okay, while they're setting up the lights or changing this or that or the other thing. And we would just sit and talk. And, he's, kid, don't make the same mistakes that I've made. And stay out of the Hollywood parties bullshit because it'll just get you in a lot of trouble. And nobody ever gets a job from one of those damn things anyway, so forget about it. And it was just, he tried to instill me with a code of ethics about my work. And he was a mentor to me. And I was just totally enthralled with him. And there's a scene in Spider Baby. Anybody ever seen Spider Baby? Okay. There's a scene where he's explaining to us that, bad people are coming and I have to go get a special prize, and what he's going to go get is a bag of dynamite and blow us up, okay? And he got very melancholy and delivering his dialogue, and at the end of the scene we hear this really weak cut, okay? And I turn around and everybody in the crew had tears in their eyes, and then they started applauding, and they wouldn't let him off the set for 5 minutes. It was great.
Both of you obviously have had impressive acting careers, but before and during acting, you've done a couple other jobs. Bill, you were a writer. You wrote for National Lampoon for a time, right?
Yep, National Lampoon, Omni Magazine, Psychology Today.
Can you talk about that a little bit? What the experience was like for that, and how it led into you becoming an actor?
Actually, I graduated from college with an English major. My first job was, real job was working as a copywriter at an ad agency in Boston. And that wasn't really doing it for me. So I ended up moving to New York and was a freelance writer down there for a bunch of different things. CB Bible, for instance, that was a magazine dedicated to the wide world of CB radio. The Bible was a small B, by the way. I just did a bunch of freelance writing. That was how I was making a living. It's funny because I ended up working on a ranch one summer in Wyoming. And on that ranch, during my ranch experience, I was working next to a kid from a small town called Geneseo, Illinois. You probably know that place. And anyway, this kid was sent out by his parents to this ranch to kind of work off, spend the summer working. We worked side by side, and he His name was John Wright, and he was a sugar freak. He would like drink Mellow Yellow and eat Frosted Flakes and popsicles. I mean, and then when he would work under the hot sun, do some physical labor, he would go into what I called sugar deliriums. And he would just start singing songs from the radio and doing, character voices and weird commercial jingles and shit. So he'd be going like, I can crunch, I hated the kid, but I turned a deaf ear to him and tried to, chop my wood. And one day he was blathering away, and he was going, oh, Captain Crunch, and then all of a sudden he went, Texas Chainsaw Manicure, and was like singing some more songs, and I was like, whoa. I heard that, and I went back to the bunkhouse, this was a ranch, and I penned about a 5-page scenario called The Texas Chainsaw Manicure. And came back to New York at the end of the summer and gathered some friends, had about $1,200 and, went out to Staten Island, New York took over a beauty parlor called Sonia's Hair Fashions and shot The Texas Chainsaw Manicure. My goal was, that was maybe 1984, and my goal was to try to sell it to Saturday Night Live or Fridays, and as it turned out, nobody wanted it, and so that was tough. So anyhow, I was sent to Los Angeles by Omni Magazine to cover the making of 2010, A Space Odyssey. And a friend of mine who was a Hollywood writer, I brought the manicure out and showed it to him back in the days of videotape. And he said, I work across the hall from Toby Hooper. Would you like me to walk this into her? And I said, sure. So he kept the tape, walked it into Toby. Toby watched the manicure. I have about a 20-second cameo in it as the hitchhiker from the original Chainsaw. Toby watched it, loved it, invited in his producer, a guy named Steven Spielberg. They both watched it, loved the manicure, loved my part as the hitchhiker. And 2 years later, that's how I got the role of Chop Top, and that's really changed my life from a writer to an actor. I never auditioned for Chainsaw 2. I just did that little short film. Toby saw it, remembered it, and hired me without an audition. I finally met Toby when I was in Chop Top makeup in Austin, Texas. So
that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Well, Sid, didn't you at one time work as a hypnotherapist?
Yeah. Well, when I flipped Hollywood off, okay, I had to pay the bills, so I had to do something. And I had done a lot of home study in the area of psychology so that I could better build a character. And so I kind of gravitated to that, and I found this college that was like the only federally accredited college of hypnotherapy in the country. It just happened to be in my backyard, okay? So I went down and I talked with them, and they gave me a test to make sure that I wasn't nuts. Boy, did I fool them. And I started class, 1,700 hours later, I did my internship and started my practice. And now I'm doing these conventions so much of the time that I don't have time to do my practice. The one thing that I did, I was able to do, I read an article in the paper that said, on the average, 1,800 service personnel a day commits suicide because of PTSD, okay? And I said, no, we gotta be able to do something about this. So I called the college and I said, we gotta develop a program that will help these guys out because, they're putting their ass on the line, getting body parts blown off and seeing their buddies explode in front of them, and then we just bring them back home and turn them loose on the street, okay? Doesn't work. So they developed the program, and now there's a way for those guys to get some help, and so that's what we do.
That's awesome. That's really commendable.
So we have a little bit of time for some questions from the audience.
Who's got a question? Looks like we got one right here. Stand up, please. And what's your name?
Kenny.
Kenny, what is your question?
My question's for Sid. It's about working in the Philippines. Is there any wild stories about anything, just crazy stories of how different it is working in a different country than it is from working in America?
Yeah, I got a story for you. We were doing the big birdcage, and we were in a region that was so remote that they were untouched by the Second World War. They didn't even know there was a war going on, okay? These are Aboriginal tribes. And so we're up there and we're shooting, and it's absolutely gorgeous. They've got rice terraces built into the mountains and everything, and it's just like these little mirrors all over the place. Beautiful. And Jack Hill was directing, and our guide and I were walking down this little dirt road, and the guide says, you know, over the top of that mountain ridge, there's a beautiful, pristine village, but you don't want to go there. Yeah, right. Tell an actor and a director that we don't want to go someplace. That's the first place we're going to go. So how do we get there? And he said, well, the trail's right here. It was about this wide, okay? It never got any wider than that. And loaded up a camera, a couple of crew guys, and up over the top of the mountain. And when we came on the other side, it was a beautiful, pristine village, cone-shaped huts up on stilts, very quiet. And the guide said, and there was a big hut in the center. And I said, well, that's like, you know, hut central. And there was something going on in there. And so the guide said, stay here, and I'm going to go in and see if it's okay for us to come into the village. And so he disappeared, and you know, this thing is up on stilts, so we could only see him from here down. And so he comes back under the thing and motions us forward, and I went up, and I came face to face with the chief of the tribe, with no cartilage in his nose and one big smiley tooth hanging down. And he hands me this wooden bowl, and I look at it, and I recognize this as blood. And there's beetle nuts floating around in there. Beetle nuts are like peyote, okay? Everybody got the picture? All right. And I said, what am I supposed to do with this? He said, you're supposed to drink it. I said, yeah, bullshit, okay? And at that moment, Jack Hill, who was standing in the back of me, goes, holy shit. And I turned around to see what he was looking at, and the entire eaves of the hut were lined with skulls. Oh, this better be some good shit, because I'm drinking it. And I did, and I got totally fucked up. I walked 7 miles through the jungle barefoot and didn't even know it, and there was little dewdrops on the leaves and stuff, and it was like prisms. I could see all these little light flashes and shit going on. Yeah, that's working in the Philippines, baby.
All right, right here.
The question is from both of you. I don't know if it was answered or not. Any future collaborations with Rob Zombie coming down the pike?
If he calls,
he's got our phone number. Yeah.
he knows how to work a phone.
Sid and I play hockey, so you know, you never know.
Yeah.
All right, right over here, buddy.
Horror genre, what would be your dream role? What role would you like to do?
For me, it would be not so much a dream role, although you know, I'm always looking for that. But for me, it would be you know, who to work with. And you know, Sid's already worked with Quentin Tarantino, but I haven't. I'd love to work with him, and definitely love to work with Guillermo del Toro.
And I would like to work with all kinds of Scorsese.
To work. Just want to work.
Scorsese is at the top of my list. I'd like to work with him. You looking at me? You talking to me? Come on. And you know, okay, so we talked about some of the films that Roger Corman had done, and I'm sure a lot of you probably know that he is responsible for the careers of Jack Nicholson, Martin Scorsese, James Cameron. I did a film called Galaxy of Terror. Yeah. All right.
Galaxy of Terror.
Yeah. James Cameron was the production designer on that film. Okay. And he designed the throwing crystals that I used. Didn't work worth shit, but he was the boss, and so I'm fine. You know, all of this, Joe Dante, Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola. You know, just an amazing amount of people that came out of that school. And it wasn't a real school. I mean, you know, he just kind of put you to task like he was the father superior. And he was. The guy's never lost money on a film. Who else can say that? Nobody. except the guys who have never made a film. Yeah. So, I would like to work with all of those people. Came close with Francis Ford Coppola. Never happened. But
You worked with Alfred Hitchcock.
I did work with Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah. Great story. I get this interview to go see Alfred Hitchcock. I said, well, shit, all right. So I go to the office, and I'm sitting there, blah, 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 and the secretary gets a little buzz thing on her intercom, and she says, you may go in now. I said, oh, okay. I got up and I knocked on the door, and I hear, come in. I said, okay, it's the boss. I opened up the door, and he was over at a file cabinet over here, and his desk was here, and his wife had decorated his office. That meant there was a lot of Irish lace curtains and blah, 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 okay? And as he came to his desk, there was the profile, okay? The Alfred Hitchcock profile. And I started laughing. And he looked at me like, what? And I went, and he got the joke, and he started laughing, and sit down, my boy. And so I sat down, we chatted for about 10, 15 minutes, and I walked off with the job. Because I'm fucking crazy.
Ready? Stand up.
Yes, first of all, I'm so honored to be in the presence of both of y'all. But I wanted to ask a question to Bill. The Chainsaw Massacre 2 is one of my favorite movies, and I love the manic energy of what's going on in that movie, which is so much more than what you see on the screen. But I want to know if you had any interesting stories about being surrounded with Jim Saito and Dennis Hopper, Carolyn Williams, and all those great people in that film. And any interesting story you could tell us about working with any of them?
Well, yeah, actually, I didn't see Dennis Hopper too much. That was when Dennis was, I guess he had just recently gotten sober, and he was coming back to the movie business. He was in the middle. Chainsaw 2 was a part of a 3-picture comeback, and the first one was Blue Velvet, then Chainsaw 2, then Hoosiers. So we were the meat and the sandwich there. But Dennis Hopper I never really hung out with too much, because when we'd be going to work, Dennis would be kind of strolling into breakfast at the motel, and then he was always throwing his golf clubs in the back of his rented Lincoln Continental, driving off to play golf with Willie Nelson's country club. So that was what Dennis did a lot of. Working with Jim Saito really was, that was my favorite experience. Of course, I was fortunate to play him in Chainsaw 3D. But when I first saw him, I just remember literally it kind of leapt out of me. It was like, it's the cook! Because I saw him, he was wandering through the parking lot of where we were all staying. It was just so, it was like it was a visceral moment, like, oh my God, there's the guy. And he was a funny guy, had a lot of great dirty jokes. And God, he was a dirty guy, but funny as shit, had a great wife. And working with Caroline was a lot of fun. She was, really, so full of energy, and you have to be, because she screams so much. I mean, my God, I remember doing the ADR after you've done a movie, then go back and you basically if there's some problems with the sound, you re-voice whatever the scene was. And poor Caroline had to just scream. That's all she did for the last 30 minutes of the movie was scream. I just had a great time doing it. I also, had a great time with LG, Lou Perryman, who also is here departed. I will just tell you one story. I think our time's running out here, but one day I was, in my full chop top makeup, and I'd been working, so I was, sweaty and dirty, and a very well-heeled woman showed up on set, nice little suit. She had a little boy with her, and she came over, and I was, getting some coffee or something like that, and she, the boy was clinging to her, and obviously afraid of me, and she looked at, she pointed to me, and she said, "Oh, don't worry, Johnny. That's just an actor. That's makeup." And I remember coming over to Johnny and just going, "Don't believe it."
We got time for one more.
All right, right back here.
So I know in like 2001 I saw Rob Zombie and he played clips from the movie, and then I had to wait, you know, another 2 years before I actually seen it. What's it like as an actor knowing you've got this awesome movie out there and nobody can see it?
To become a successful actor, one thing that you have to develop is patience, okay? There's a zen that goes along with doing this business. And I kept telling Rob, just be patient. This is a great film. It'll get legs. Somebody will pick it up. Don't worry about it. And, you know, it's just time after time. And then finally the story comes out that the one company that never saw House of a Thousand Corpses was Lionsgate. They set up the screening and said, okay, the next deal, the deal was done, bought it from Universal, boom, and everything else is history.
And it made its money back in the first day.
It made its money back in the first day. Yeah. And Stacy Schneider was eating her face, okay, because she was the one that turned it down.
And you just have to just take it easy, you know.
Just
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. Give a big round of applause.
Big round of applause for both Bill Moseley and Mr. Sid Haig.